From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Two Montana healthcare giants combining forces. We'll tell you what it means for Billings clinic employees.
This really helps us to integrate systems and get patients for stroke care in particular.
Plus the latest on a proposal to bring a new high school to the Magic City.
It's the smaller field, the same that our kids are getting from our elementary school. We're hoping to take on to that high school.
And we'll take you inside a brand new Billings grocery store just days before the grand opening. Good morning and welcome to Montana This Morning on this Thursday, February 16th. New this morning from the state capitol, lawmakers are considering putting the protections of the Federal Indian Child Welfare Act into Montana law. We've been following the bill in committee, and here's some context first on what this is before we get into our story. First, Congress enacted ICWA in 1978 to protect Native American children from being removed from their homes to be fostered or adopted by anybody from outside the tribe. And this was due in part because of the history of forced removals of children and assimilation policies in the U.S. Montana's rate of American Indian children in foster care is 3.7 times as high as the rate of Caucasian children. And now the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to rule on a case challenging ICWA protections sometime this year. 10 other states in the U.S. have already codified the federal requirements into their state laws. I talked to a mother from the Northern Cheyenne tribe, and she told me how ICWA worked in her life.
The ICWA program falls within the Family Drug Treatment Court, a process where parents who lose their children due to addiction issues can receive treatment and get their kids back.
Well, it was work. It was like a job. Putting in the hours, and you know, it was so much work, but so worth it.
Worth it because Kyle Spang was reminded of her worth.
I don't have to do these things. I get to do these things was my attitude with all of that, because I got to get my life back. I got to be the mom that I always was meant to be, you know, and the great person. I'm strong, and, you know, I get to dream dreams now and, you know, make goals and achieve those goals. You know.
She's already achieved so much, like getting Shad back in her life, the youngest of her 5 kids.
So that just like made me more motivated, because I had this little life to take care of that was just with me.
The Indian Child Welfare Act ensured that Shad was placed with Kyle's Northern Cheyenne relatives while she was receiving help.
For my son to be with my family and have that cultural component is very important.
Tribal advocates play an active role in the treatment and reunification process.
And it's just a whole, like a family engagement meeting. And you get to be a part of it, and all of them get to hear how your success is doing, you know, and everybody's on the same page.
Kyle told me her connection to home meant so much to her recovery.
Having the tribal people support me and just made me proud, because that's my culture.
Cultural connections lawmakers are trying to protect at the state legislature through the Montana Indian Child Welfare Act. Representative Jonathan Windyboy is sponsoring the bill. It seeks to put the protections of federal law into Montana code and add some other programs.
Like child support, like Title 4E foster care, and all of these other things, because this ICWA thing is more than just ICWA. It has a whole different layer of programs that tie into this for the best interest of the child.
The bill will impact families like Kyle's, where love was stronger than 20 years of addiction.
So what do you hope for Shad? For Shad, I hope that, you know, my parenting, I get to be involved and do things and be there and nurture him and love him. I get to do with him what I never got to do with my other kids.
Can I ask what this has been like for your other 4 kids, because you're sort of restored as their mother too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's that been like?
So proud. They are so proud, and you know, not once have my kids given up on me.
Kyle is set to graduate from the Recovery Court program in May, and we will be there.
All righty. Okay, sorry about that. I was just answering a question about some snow next week. Yes, we do have snow in the forecast, but they're wanting me to give totals. I don't want to give totals yet. But I can say this. We do have a hefty amount of snow possibly.
Hefty, okay.
Yes, that's a big word.
Okay.
Hefty.
Yeah.
That covers, well, pretty much everything, hopefully.
I think you're safe.
All right now we're taking a look at the mothership below, a waning crescent moon. It is a beautiful sky out there this morning, but it is chilly. Yeah. Speaking of cold, yesterday our high only got up to 23, our low of 2, so a good 15 degrees below the norm yesterday. Top gust, we hit over 30 miles an hour. We may not see that today. but it could pick back up. I will tell you this, though, the foothills, not as windy this morning, but as we get into this afternoon, this evening, and through tomorrow morning, those gusts will start to kick back up again. Could see gusts 40 to 60 miles an hour. That also includes up and down 191, Big Timber to Harlingen, where that means blowing snow could be an issue. Now, it was dry yesterday, so how is it doing with our moisture totals? Well, we're pretty much on target, just a little bit in the minus column. Look at those snow totals. But if we get that, here's the word again, hefty amount of snow next week, we could wipe out those snow totals and get on the plus side.
Oh,
so that's
really? Okay.
something hopefully we're looking forward to. Hopefully with that snow we have a lot of moisture associated with it. We really could use the moisture, not that dry snow. 13 right now at the airport, feels like 6 below. Winds out of the southwest at 23. Just had a gust of 30 at the airport. Highs today mainly in the 30s. Some of us may hit 40. We'll get there as we head into the weekend, and then more changes a coming next week. We'll break it all down with the main forecast coming up. But I'm not talking exact totals.
Okay.
Not yet. Not yet.
We're going to get Miller's best estimate in a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Miller. And local parents and now it appears school leaders are throwing support behind bringing a new high school to the Billings West End. For this to become a reality, the Blue Creek, Elysian, Canyon Creek, and Elder Grove districts would need to consolidate. At a meeting last night, superintendents and select board members from all 4 districts say they were on board, and now they'll take the idea to the full school boards to find out if they want to go through the process that includes elections, a bond issue, and mill levies.
The big part will be to educate people and help them to understand why we want to consolidate. It's not because we're trying to take over schools or anything like that. It's because it's required by law.
If you were to say, hey, let's just build a high school out here, people would be great, let's do it. But there's a lot of steps that need to be done first.
Consolidation is required because state law says 1,000 students are needed to build a new high school here in Billings. A massive announcement from one of the Magic City's biggest employers. Billings Clinic is combining with Logan Health. Q2's Phil Van Pelt explores how this merger impacts hospitals and employees all across the state.
There's a lot of questions about what that merger means for the 4,700 employees here at Billings Clinic and what changes might lie ahead.
They're 2 of the state's largest hospital systems, and in the future, Billings Clinic and Logan Health could become one, employing more than 9,000 employees across Montana.
We've got 2 organizations that have the capacity to make a difference in those spaces, and we really need to have some conversations of how we could create more access and quality, and that led to additional discussion.
The 2 signed a letter of intent to explore a merger, with hopes of finalizing a deal come summer. The goal? Improve access to quality care.
There are a significant number, hundreds of patients that are transported out of our state and region every year to receive stroke care. This really helps us to integrate systems and get patients for stroke care in particular to definitive care as soon as possible.
Logan Health employs around 4,400 employees, where Billings Clinic employs around 4,700. But with talks of a merger come concerns about staffing and potential layoffs. Neither hospital is ready to discuss specifics just yet.
We certainly are looking at down the road what efficiencies we can gain by working together, but it's definitely too early. We are early in the process of this.
Billings Clinic has seen a lot of change over the past couple of years, including sizable staffing shortages made worse by COVID. And last year, several members of the hospital's leadership team, including CEO Scott Elner, resigned with little notice.
As I've stepped into the CEO position for the last almost 6 months now, my focus has been to really move the organization forward.
The hospitals say neither will be changing its name, at least not anytime soon. But the change is a big one that will bring even more changes in the months to come.
This is not an acquisition. This is two organizations uniting, and so this is us coming together to care for patients across our geographies.
In Billings, Phil Van Pelt, MTN News.
Thank you, Phil. And topping national headlines this morning, 1 person was killed and 3 others hurt in a shooting last night at a mall in El Paso, Texas. Police say it started in the food court and that 2 suspects are in custody. The mall is in a shopping area near a Walmart where 23 people were killed in a racially motivated attack in 2019. This attack happening on the same night a vigil was held last night at Michigan State University following the deadly on-campus shooting Monday night that killed 3 students and critically hurt 5 others. There was also a protest at the state capitol in Michigan calling for stricter gun laws. An update on the Michigan State investigation is expected later today. And in Ohio, environmental officials are trying to convince East Palestine residents toxic chemical levels are fine there following last week's train derailment. Hundreds showed up for a community meeting, but officials from the railroad operator were notably absent. They say they pulled out of the meeting, citing safety concerns for their staff. Since the train went off its tracks and officials authorized a burn and release of toxic chemicals on board, people have reported rashes, headaches, and other ailments. Thousands of fish have died. Rail officials say the chemicals had to be burned off to prevent an explosion. We know housing costs in Billings are going up. In 2011, the average home price under $195,000, and that jumps to $256,000 in 2018. Now, buying a house here will cost you $400,000, and if you already own your home, this is good news. But it's not great for city and state leaders who are trying to keep young people living and working here. Q2's Andrea Lutz explains.
It's something Charles Westwood finds himself doing quite a bit. Browsing through house listings online.
I've made 6 different offers.
Westwood and his wife have been searching for a new home for over a year, hoping to one day start a family.
The realtor was really confident we'd get it, but each time we've been outbid by 2 or 3 other offers.
And that frustration has made him take a break from home shopping.
The market hasn't cooled off from what I've seen so far.
He's just one of thousands in Montana searching for their dream home. But the dream is looking pretty bleak.
Home prices have gone up about 35% in the last 2 years.
At a time when wages have only increased by a fraction of that.
They're certainly not vested into our community if they can't afford to buy a home.
And that's where the problem lies, according to those of the Billings Association of Realtors.
Long-term effects are going to be pretty negative if we don't find solutions to our housing problems.
Bob Leach is a longtime realtor in Billings and has been studying the impacts of the housing market for years, recently taking his findings to the governor's housing task force. Bob says his findings are placing Montana into a critical crisis.
People who stock grocery stores, police, fire, I mean, if people can't buy homes, they're more unsettled, more likely to go someplace where they can. But I estimate that 75% of the people who could afford a home 3 years ago cannot buy one today.
One solution, he says, is to take the cost of land out of the equation, something that could be achieved through a community land trust.
The city's talked about donating land. We've talked to the county commissioners on land that they might have for development and make it permanently affordable.
It's an idea that may help an entire generation achieve a basic American liberty, home ownership.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of options when you're on a fixed budget.
First-time home buyers right now are basically excluded from the market.
A problem with serious implications if it's not addressed.
We need to find some innovative solutions to that because this problem, we're just on the front end of this. This isn't going to go away anytime soon.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Thank you, Andrea, for following that. And construction is underway on a series of new townhomes starting at around $273,000. The NFL development is the brainchild of realtor Greg McCall. His goal, create a self-sustaining neighborhood with prices new buyers can afford. It's on the southwest side of town and it's already growing. A soda shop just opened last weekend in Annafeld and eventually there will be 1,000 places to live there. McCall's only worry is that won't be enough.
We want to build homes for everyone. Mixed in throughout Annafeld is people who might be just getting their very first rental, or it might be their very last home that they're downsizing into. We worry about whether or not we will be able to provide enough housing. We know that continues to be a huge issue.
That soda shop we mentioned, the Maple Moose, is the first commercial store to open in the Annafeld marketplace. Happening this Saturday, a new grocery store opens on the West End. The Grand and 54th Street Albertsons is Billings' 7th and caters to the fastest growing parts of the city. People in the neighborhood are pretty excited to have a supermarket nearby, and the store's director, who's been in the business for 19 years, says building a store in this part of town was a no-brainer.
Well, as everybody from Billings knows, this community is really growing and the West End's growing rapidly. So there's kind of a food desert, if you will, out in this side of town. So really glad to get something out here.
The store has 200 employees and it features a Starbucks, a walk-up and drive-through pharmacy, and drive-up grocery options.